Hello, everyone. For today's lesson, we're going to cover the body cavities for anatomy. But before I get started on today's lesson, I want you to review the Quizlets from the past 2 days. Take about 15 minutes to review the Quizlet flashcards for regional terms, and then take some time to review the flashcards for directional terms. You can pause this recording and then press play when you're ready to move on. So today we'll talk about body cavities. There are two main body cavities, the dorsal body cavity and the ventral body cavity. The body cavities provide varying degrees of protection to the organs within them, and we'll discuss that today in the lesson. So the dorsal body cavity is on the posterior side of the body, and it consists of the cranial cavity and the spinal cavity. The ventral body cavity is on the anterior side of the body, and it consists of the thoracic cavity and the abdominopelvic cavity, which can be broken down into the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity. And the diaphragm separates the thoracic cavity and the abdominopelvic cavity. The dorsal body cavity has two main subdivisions, the cranial cavity, which houses the brain and is protected by the skull, and the spinal cavity, which houses the spinal cord and is protected by the vertebrae. Then the ventral body cavity has two subdivisions that are separated by the diaphragm, the thoracic cavity and the abdominopelvic cavity. The thoracic cavity is the cavity superior to the diaphragm. It houses the heart, lungs, and other organs. The mediastinum, the central region, houses the heart, trachea, and other organs. And this cavity is protected by the rib cage. The abdominopelvic cavity is the cavity inferior to the diaphragm. It's the superior abdominal cavity contains the stomach, liver, and other organs, and it's protected by your trunk muscles or your abs. The inferior pelvic cavity contains reproductive organs, bladder, and rectum, and it's protected somewhat by your bony pelvis, like your hip bones. There's no physical structure that separates the abdominal from the pelvic cavities. And then a lot of times, the abdominopelvic cavity will be divided into subdivisions. So there's the abdominal quadrants and the abdominal regions. There are 4 quadrants or 9 regions, and we'll go over that over the next few slides. So the abdominal quadrants are broken up into the right upper quadrant, left upper quadrant, left lower quadrant, and right lower quadrant. And the umbilicus, or your belly button, is the divider for the 4 quadrants. So this is used to determine what kind of organ or which organs could be affected based off where you feel the pain. So if you have pain in your right lower quadrant, you could have issues with your appendix. Or if you have pain in your left upper quadrant, you could have issues with your stomach, your pancreas, part of your intestines, and part of your liver. So they use this to determine which organs could be affected by where you feel pain in your abdomen. Same with the abdominopelvic regions. It's used for the same purpose, but it is a little bit more specific because there are more divisions. So the divisions are the right hypochondriac region, epigastric region, left hypochondriac region, right lumbar region, umbilical region, left lumbar region, right iliac region, hypogastric region, and the left iliac region. So this is also used to determine which organs could be affected based off where the patient feels the pain in their abdominopelvic cavity. And so as you can see, if you have pain in the hypogastric region, it could be related to an issue with your intestines or your urinary bladder. If you have pain with the right hypochondriac region, it could be related to issues with your liver or your gallbladder. So again, these are used to determine which organs could be affected based off where the patient feels pain. There are other body cavities in the body, but we're not really going to go into detail for them. So there's the oral and digestive cavities, the nasal cavity, the orbital cavities, and the middle ear cavities. So we won't go into full detail in this chapter, but we'll cover those more later in their respective chapters. So for the review slide, I want you to think about the major body cavities that we covered, and I want you to recall the names and then think about the descriptions for each of the major body cavities. So which organs are inside of those cavities, which structures divide the cavities. So think about all of the information that we covered today.